Welcome back to the Hungaroring. We are ready for the next race, and it is the ACCR Formula race, the junior category, Junior Formula 4, under the Auto Club of Czech Republic, which is a brand new and emerging championship. We are starting off with 6 cars on the grid, but from here we are only going to grow. And we're getting ready for the next cars to arrive into the field later on. Yes, the car maker does suffer from delivery issues, as pretty much everybody in the automotive industry has been said during this week. So 6 cars ready for the inaugural round of this championship in 2023. We were trying to start the season in Germany, but that couldn't be done for various reasons, and that means that the season opener comes here in Hungary, in the venue of the Hungarian Formula 1 Grand Prix, actually, which was the first ever Grand Prix to be contested behind the, well, in one of the countries behind the Iron Curtain, so-called, which is fortunately gone forever. And that was back in 1986. Now it's 2023, and there is something else starting. Because we lost the German round at Oschersleben, we are adding another one at the brand new Balaton Park for the finale of the season later on in October. And in between that, we are going to have rounds in Austria, Slovakia, and twice in the Czech Republic. So the drivers are now off for the formation lap. It is the race 1 winner, Ethan Ischer, who is on pole in his Jensa Motorsport prepared car once again. This time it is Michael Sauter sharing the front row together with him. Michael Sauter took on the fight with Renault Frankot in the beginning of race number 1 and immediately dealt with the Dutch opponent to score basically a Swiss 1-2. However, it is now a cross-team result. Because Michael Sauter is driving for the Sauter Engineering. We have got 2 Renauer Motorsport cars on the grid, driven by Nico Taylor and Jiří Šafránek. We have got 2 Jensa Motorsport cars in the hands of Ethan Ischer and Renault Frankot, and one of them, one car prepared by Sauter Engineering, that's Michael Sauter, and then Gender Racing Team fielding Oliver Michel. So Nico Taylor 4th on the grid. Oliver Michel in 5th and Jiří Šafránek in 6th. To write the chapter 1 of the new history of the ACCR Formula here in Hungary. The red lights are on, the red lights are off, and away we go. That was really quick yet again, and now everybody's slipstreaming into the first corner. Ethan Ischer leading and trying to hold on the first place, but look at Michael Sauter fast starting once again, and he did manage to overtake one of the Jensa Motorsport cars in the first race, and now he's trying to do the same with the other one. Trying to have a look around the outside, but he's already clipped his front wing and damaged it in the process. He was trying to get Ethan Ischer into the first corner, but as a result comes damage, and the front wing is clipped and is hanging off at one end and rubbing onto the ground, which is definitely not going to be very good for the car's handling. I mean, these cars aren't that fast yet, and you'll notice that, let's say, compared to your Formula 3s and Formula 2s and Formula 1s, that front wing actually only has one main plate and no further smaller winglets, etc. So it's actually very simple in its geometry, which also means, and as the cars do not reach such high speeds that you don't notice it that much. But now you do when the wing starts to go in contact with one of your tires and is now hanging off even more and more. And the worst thing that can now happen to Michael Sauter would be if the wing came off and got stuck underneath the front axle. But despite that, Michael Sauter is trying to keep going, which definitely does not seem like a very safe thing to do. You need to remember that inside the cockpit you're really sitting very low down, so you don't actually see your front wing as you're driving. You only see sort of tops of the front tires, and that's all. So if the wing is damaged like it is on Michael Sauter's car, you will not notice, only on the driving and handling characteristics of the car, because it is now suddenly missing quite a lot of the front grip and front downforce. So the car will become terribly understeery, which it is already. So now it is Yenza Motorsport 1-2 in the process, and Nico Taylor taking third off the hands of Michael Sauter, but running wide. Well, both of them are actually running wide. Nico Taylor had to run wide because he had to take a wide line and was maybe a little too fast to do that. And then Michael Sauter simply went wide because his car doesn't really steer properly anymore. Now even Oliver Michel is through with his car, prepared by the GRT racing team, and Jiří Šafránek following them in 6th. He will also be trying to get through with his yellow single-seater. Sauter is now returning back to the pits, of course. He is coming for a nose change, but that is definitely not going to be... Well, first of all, everybody needs to be very careful because there is still the podium ceremony going on after the GT sprint race, and because there's quite a lot of categories to be awarded, then there's still quite a lot of people standing under the podium. So everybody needs to pay attention, which they have done, and now there's a nose change. Pretty quick job, needs to be said. I was gonna actually comment that it's not going to be anything very fast. Because usually the junior single-seaters are not made for quick pit stops. You'll notice that even, for example, on the International Formula 3, where you first have to lift the spring and shock absorber cover before you're even able to disassemble the nose cone. But here, I'm actually quite surprised how well it went. I mean, yeah, it's all just quick fixing points, a couple of them. But I'm not really sure whether the mechanics trained for this too often. But that was a job well done, needs to be said. Credit where credit's due, honestly. Okay, so Michael Sauter is back in the race, but of course he is now having a race of his own, a race to himself, because he's already lost a lot to the rest of the pack. So he is now finding himself on a completely different side of the circuit than anybody else. And the Yenza Motorsport duo is now already negotiating the first corner, while Michael Sauter is only now entering the third sector of the track. And you saw the incident in question in a replay, so you just could see where Michael Sauter clipped his wing on the opening lap. He was trying to fight hard for the race win. He went from third to second in race number 1 with the good starting maneuver. Now he tried the same thing on the other Jensen machine, but you now know full well how that ended. This is shaping up to be potentially interesting. This has basically now become a fight for the remaining podium spot, which is always interesting for everyone. So Nico Taylor will now have quite a lot to do, an important job in his hands to protect that third from Oliver Michel, because for him it's now become a fight for home pride, and he can actually step on the podium on the home soil, which would definitely be nice for him, as it would be for any local driver. So Ethan Ischer leading the race from Renault Frankot, but Renault Frankot is now running really well, and he set the fastest lap of the race. Look at him. The young Dutch, he was slower than Ischer and Sauter in the first race, but now he's found more pace. And he's done 1:46.4 as his best lap. Also because the cars are powered only by 1.4 litre straight, well, it's an inline four-cylinder engines, which aren't very loud. You'll also hear quite a lot of the tire squealing you would normally hear. It's not that it's not happening on the other single seaters, it does, but you don't hear a lot of it over the engine usually. But of course, the 1.4 litre Abarth engine is not making that much noise. And also look at the camber on all four wheels. Interesting stuff going on there. It is a pretty tight and twisty track. It's not very fast, honestly. Sort of the majority of the corners are sort of mid-speed for regular single-seaters, but for the junior formulas, they are pretty fast, and you are cornering pretty much flat out. You've got to brake into a lot of the corners where maybe with the bigger machines you wouldn't be able to, well, you wouldn't have to brake because of bigger downforce and bigger cornering speeds. But here you're trying to carry as much speed as you can through all of the corners, and to help that, the cars are actually set with an extreme camber. So if you look at the car from the front or from the back, doesn't really matter, but from either one of them, not from the side, like this shot, yes. If you take this shot, you just notice how the wheels are actually angled towards the car body. And it might seem illogical, maybe if you're new to car racing now, but of course, on the straight, you're basically only running on the insides of the tires. But if you're cornering and you're pulling lateral G-forces and basically the car is leaning onto the side, the outer tire has the tendency to sort of stand up, and that's what you really need for the proper cornering experience and cornering speed, because you basically lean against the tire, you can rely on it much more, and you extend or increase your contact surface between the tire and the tarmac, and that gives you more grip and that gives you better cornering speed. Of course, then on the straight, it's not as good as you would need, but the disadvantages aren't that big as are the advantages, so this is what everybody's doing. But if you'll also notice that you see sort of a darker line in the middle of each tire, and that's basically the edge of the two zones. So down the straight, you're basically running only on the insides of the tires, and the outsides are basically just lifted up in the air. And in between those two areas are basically bending the tire surface, and as you are bending it and the tire is warm, you will have small blisters on the tires, which means that the top layer of the rubber, top layer of the tire, is actually disintegrating from the rest of the wheel. So you'll notice that darker stripe in the middle of each tire. But all in all, it's better for cornering and it's overall faster. And across 25 minutes, the tires can simply survive that, so you will do that. Those are just, let's say, interesting basics of single-seater engineering. And camber is something that is extremely important on every single car. If you go down the pit lane and you look at your GTs, look at your TCRs, look at your Clios, all of them are doing that to a certain extent. Of course, with the tin top cars, you won't notice that much because the wheels are covered, or let's say hidden inside the wheel arches. It is noticeable, but of course, if you've got your single-seater, you've got your tire sticking out and completely visible, so you're able to notice that much more profoundly. And with that lesson, we've reached the halfway mark of the race, with the two Yenza Motorsport cars still enjoying the 1-2 lead, with Ethan Ischer already opening up a 1.4 second gap in front of his teammate Renaud Francot. Nico Taylor in third from Oliver Michel. Jiří Šafránek in fifth. And it's going to be quite interesting to see whether Michael Sauter has any sort of realistic chance to actually catch up with the rest of the pack, because, for example, Jiří Šafránek is now losing 20 seconds or trailing the leader Ethan Ischer by more than 20 seconds. So there is a 26.5 second gap between Šafránek and Sauter. But Sauter is now lapping some 2.5 seconds per lap faster than the Czech driver. And that's not gonna be enough. That's what I was trying to say. It's getting late already. And we've talked a lot this weekend already. Look at that, Oliver Michel is really going for it. He's definitely not lost faith, and he can smell that home third place, and he wants that. This is a really big fight for the home pride. For Nico Taylor, this would also be his first podium finish of the season, of course. He was fourth in race number 1, but now third is up for grabs. He's holding it, but Oliver Michel wants it absolutely desperately. Could probably be said. Yeah, he's now run a little wider on the exit of the right-hander of turn 5. Now through the chicane they go. And on to the next one. Look at that. It's now Nico Taylor is trying to break the toe. You might be thinking, does the toe even work on a Formula 4 car? Well, trust me, I've tried a Renault Twingo and it works on that. With a boxy car with 78 horsepower. So, a single-seater with 100 more than 100 more. It's about 180, 185 brake horsepower, this car. 1.4 litres. And only, what, 570 kilograms. So it, yeah, goes incredibly. It's pretty agile, this car. And even with that, the slipstream works. Because, yeah, slipstream, what does it mean? Basically, you're just cutting through the air as the leading car. And when you're following, you don't have to cut through that much air as the car in front of you, because it's basically doing the job for you, which means that you're basically sucked towards the car in front of you. And that means that you're gaining top speed. So down the straights, it simply works. Of course, if your car does not really have that much downforce, it's not really negating that much downforce. So the effect isn't as, let's say, dramatic as on cars with proper downforce and proper wings, but that does not mean that it doesn't work at all. And around the final corner they go again. Nico Taylor weaving across the track once again. Just trying to break the toe from Oliver Michel. Michel is incredibly close, but he's got to stay patient. This is gonna, really needs to go 10th by 10th. It looks like he's very close. 5/10 of a second, half a second really, but it's not close enough just yet. He still needs, I would say, 2 or 3 tenths more. He really needs to be glued on Nico Taylor's rear wing on the exit of the last corner to then stage a proper fight, because really with these cars, because they are slow, you can't really get that much of a speed advantage down the straight. So actually the slipstream works, but as soon as you break it, as soon as you get out of the slipstream, it'll slow you right down. It'll hit you into the face like with a spade. So basically what he needs to do is to stay within the slipstream for as long as he can, pretty much all the way to the start of the braking zone, and then he needs to pull alongside and just go for it. But we'll see about that right now. Oliver Michel is really going well, but both of them are. 1:48.8 for both of them. They were just 0.04 of a second apart from one another when it comes to their lap times on the previous lap. 5 minutes left to go. Isher leading from Frankfurt. That is decided for the moment. Ooh, and a little bit of a mistake from Nico Taylor exiting the last corner, but still, Michel is just not close enough. 6/10, that's too much. Is he going to try something at least to unnerve his opponent? He just went too deep into the corner. With that, he's not going to really gain anything. If he knows that he's not going to launch an attack, just don't try halfway through the braking zone. That's just going to destroy your tires. Both of them enjoying a bit of AstroTurf on the outside of that corner, but they are already separated by about 3 seconds, so not a lot to be expected from them in terms of fighting. Unfortunately, it now seems that Oliver Michel has He's lost touch with Nico Taylor. Maybe he's just taken away a little too much out of his tyres so far. Now that could be those tiny lockups into the first corner and into the second one as well. The more you do that, the more you're just destroying the tyres and taking away from them more than you need to be taking. And that just costs you performance. So yeah, Oliver Michel was really doing well, but now he's 1.2 seconds further back. So he lost another 0.6 on that previous lap. 1:48.8 from Taylor and 1:49.4 from Oliver Michel. There's still chance. There's still some time. We're doing a lap in 1:47 roundabout. All the race leaders are. 46.9, 46.8. That's what Isher and Franco have been doing. So that means that we should now be theoretically on the second to last lap. On the penultimate lap, we'll just have to wait and see how fast the race leader will now reach the start and finish line. There's the fight for third, okay, but let's see. Ethan Isher. It's going to be really close. 51.50. I believe we still have 2 laps to go. Just by a couple of seconds. There they are. He crossed the line with about 1:49 on the clock, and the lap times he's doing now, it's 1:46.6. And with 3 seconds gap, with a 3-second gap to his teammate, he can't even afford to slow down to not allow another lap, because he would lose the lead of the race. That would be probably dramatic, but you know what, it's just simply not going to happen, which means that we simply have 2 laps to go. Taylor still defending from Michel, but it seems actually that Michel's tyres are now shot, because he's now trailing Taylor by 1.7 seconds. Isher, albeit only just, but still managed to enter another lap. Now the time is up. But we have 1 more lap to go. So last 4.4 kilometers for everybody. And there we go then, Ethan Ischer climbing up to the hill. 2 corners remaining now, and around the final one he goes to score another victory. He took pole position for the first race, he won the first race, and now he is victorious in the second one as well. It is a double victory for the young Swiss driver Ethan Ischer, victorious in both of the races. Renault Frankfurt finishing second on the road to give Jense Motorsport a 1-2 that slipped away from them not yesterday, but earlier on today in the first race, I mean. And Nico Taylor, there he goes. Nico Taylor, there he goes, yeah. Out of the final corner to give himself the first podium finish. Oliver Michel, he tried everything he could, every single trick in the book. But in the end, he comes 2 seconds short of his home podium finish. Jiří Šafránek finishing 5th on the road, and Michal Sauter, having had to come back to pits for a front wing repair after the opening lap incident, is only finishing now in a distant 6th. And that is it for the race number 2. Good opening weekend for the ACC Junior Formula. And we are going to be looking forward to much, much more. It's starting with 6 cars. So reserve your criticisms. It does have a certain 2005 US Grand Prix feel to it, but that's because this is all the beginning. We're going to get more cars, we're going to get more drivers, we're going to get more teams. There is interest, that's the most important thing. And finally we are pretty much now laying the foundation stone for the brand new junior single-seater series for the Central European zone, and for the hundreds and hundreds of talented go-kart drivers at a reasonable price. So when we get this thing going, when ACCR gets this thing going, it's going to be a proper one, and we just can't wait to see that. So with that, we are going to finish the first weekend of the season. Ethan Ischer victorious for the second time this weekend, so taking both victories, this time from Renault Frankfurt. Nico Taylor in 3rd, Oliver Michel in 4th, Jiří Šafránek in 5th, and Michael Sauter in 6th. And that's your confirmed results. I mean, confirmed for the moment, of course. The results unofficial, as is always the case right after the race. The cars need to go through the scrutineering, etc., etc. But with this, we are going to say goodbye for now. We're going to have our last break, and then we're going to be back with more. There's still a Clio Cup race and a Swift Cup race to be had a little later on in the afternoon, so make sure you come back. Let me just tell you very quickly, it should be right after 4 p.m. that we'll be back with more action here from Hungary. So we're going to be looking forward to you joining us once again here in Hungary.